Hey everyone, welcome back to our channel. If you're new here, please subscribe. I'd really love that. If you're returning, how you doing? We have quite a few things to talk about today, okay? So I hope you're ready. Get your coffee or your soft drink, your iced tea, maybe a Snick snack. Get ready, sit down, relax, and let's talk, okay? So the first thing that we're going to be discussing is something that happened in 2021, okay? It's the Abbey Gate. Okay, it happened in 2021, like I said, at the Kabul airport. Okay, this is an incident that took place at Hamid Karzai International Airport in Kabul, Afghanistan on August 26, 2021, during the evacuation from Afghanistan. I'm sure a lot of you can remember that. Sarah Adams is trying to answer a lot of questions that we all have about who the FBI has just extradited back to the US. Someone they're now calling the mastermind behind the Abbey Gate, which she's saying is obviously not the mastermind. I hope this overview helps answer some of your questions, okay?
Hi, I'm making a quick video because so many people asked me about who is this terrorist that the US government brought and extradited to the United States, saying he's the mastermind of the Abbey Gate attacks. I think we all know after a day of so much noise about it, he's not the mastermind. The two masterminds for Abbey Gate were the head of ISIS Khorasan province, Sanaullah Ghaffari, and the head of the Haqqani network, Sirajuddin Haqqani. So who is this terrorist? He is ISIS. He's a low-level fighter. If we actually go back, if you've read our report, HKaya Know Thy Enemy, at the end we actually have a timeline. So I thought, let's just go off the timeline to tell you a little bit of a story of him so it's helpful. You know, it was August 13th, 2021, when the US government made the announcement, decided to do, you know, the NEO, which was the evacuation from Afghanistan. What was only 2 days later when there's the huge prison break from Bagram, that's now where this Mohammed Sharifullah gets out of prison. Well, when he leaves prison, he escapes with two terrorists. One is named Adel Panshiri. He's very interesting because he was actually the key plotter behind the Kerman Iran attack, which was the one on Qasem Soleimani's grave, 4 years after, the U.S. Took him out. He would actually have been a really great capture. And anyway, and then the third terrorist with them was actually the bomber at Abbey Gate. His name's Abdul Rauf Sangari. If you haven't read our report, you might not have heard that name. We were the only ones to identify him in true name, so the U.S. government calls him by his ISIS alias, which is Abdul Rahman al-Lagori. So these three terrorists break out of prison together, okay? Just 3 days later, the suicide bomber is now down in Kandahar sitting in the plotting meeting for Abbey Gate, right? Abbey Gate then, of course, occurs August 26th. So who's in that meeting? Well, of course, the two masterminds we talked about, Sirajuddin and then Sanaullah. Also in the meeting is Sanaullah's deputy, Rajab, a couple of Sirajuddin family members. One is Hafiz Haqqani. Hafiz Haqqani is an interesting cat because he ends up being the commander on the ground at the attacks that tells a suicide bomber, hey, you're in the perfect position, now detonate. He's also the son-in-law of Dr. Ayman al-Zawahiri. So he is a Haqqani and he is a Zawahiri. And our government only tells you this was an ISIS attack, right? Like, we have a problem already in this story. Another terrorist at the plotting meeting is Abdulaziz Haqqani. He's well known. He's on the U.S. most wanted list for 5 million for being a key Al-Qaeda facilitator, right? When we say Al-Qaeda facilitator, he was one of Zawahiri's main facilitators. He's the one who brought the head of ISIS up to Kabul to be, near the attacks when it happened. So just so you understand, I just gave you, of course, the names of the masterminds and then the key plotters, which were Haqqanis. Even if we talk about the planners and supporters at the gates, it was Haqqani network members who allowed the suicide bomber to go through the gates. Now, this isn't the first time this individual's name came up, the one we extradited. It was April 25th, 2023, when the Biden administration administration made an announcement, hey, the Taliban killed the mastermind of the Abbey Gate attacks. I posted then, I believe it was on our LinkedIn, and pushed back and said, first off, he's not dead. The Taliban hasn't done a successful operation and killed anyone from ISIS. And secondly, that would be a fake mastermind. He's not the real mastermind. Of course, that ended up being a ruse. What the Taliban unfortunately did on March 10th, they did a fake operation against ISIS and they killed 8 civilians, and some of them were construction workers and other ones were actually Afghan allies who fought with us. Just this last January, we did a whole post with a video of that incident talking about it because it was a war crime, right? So, not only have people been dishonest that this is a mastermind, we've had innocent people die over him, and now he's in the US, he's gonna go through the court process, probably get 20 years in prison. And again, he could have maybe done some casing. Maybe he was riding in the car to some of these meetings. I don't know, but this is a low-level ISIS fighter. And I do think we should expect more from our government when it comes to justice. And we had this happen with Benghazi. They brought a fake mastermind and everybody was done with Benghazi. We didn't get justice. So we really hope everybody understands the masterminds are at large. They're still plotting against us here. They're connected to the Haqqanis and Al-Qaeda, and it's time for our government to be honest about it. Thank you.
So now on to something that is going to upset a lot of you. Once again, there's going to be a lot of things in this video that are going to upset you, so I hope you're ready. Ranchers in Utah, they're being kicked off their land to protect an endangered species. Yeah. Ranchers. Guys, I'm so sorry. Okay? I can't make sense of any of this. I really can't.
30 years ago, ranchers were kicked off their land here to protect an endangered species. But now that same land is being bulldozed for a massive housing development that could double the population of the small town of Leeds. So residents here are wondering, was this land really protected or just reserved for the right price? Back in the 90s, the government rescinded ranchers' permits here in Leeds, saying they had to stop grazing cattle because it was a threat to the endangered desert tortoise habitat. Pam Johnson's family lost their permit, which they paid nearly $50,000 for and was supposed to last for 99 years. They also had to sell their cattle to then pay for that permit. But today, bulldozers are ripping through that same protected land to make way for homes, hotels, and retail stores. Pam is furious. She told me that that land should never have been bulldozed, and if it was protected, it should have stayed protected. So the question is, what has changed? Town officials told me that once this land was sold to a private developer, the developer has a legal right to build. The mayor said that the town needs this tax revenue and that revenue will help with some necessary infrastructure improvements. For Johnson and other residents here in Leeds, the contradiction is glaring, and they fear that with the zoning changes already passed in August, that it's too late for this land and the tortoises that live here to be saved.
So you see this picture of this man? I'm sure you all know who he is. El Salvador President Nayib Bukele. I think I said his last name correctly. If not, I'm so sorry. You are a good-looking man, by the way. He is reacting to the judges that are overstepping their authority to hamstring 47 and Doge. Okay, I'm sure he's talking about Amy Coney Barrett. He said, this is exactly what judges were doing in El Salvador in 2021. So what did we do? We impeached them. And then we proceeded to fix the country. So, Mr. President, get rid of the judges. Okay? So, this next thing, let's talk about tariffs. Okay? Because it seems like tariffs is what we are going to be going over battle for soon, especially when it comes to China. Yeah. And I don't know if y'all are aware, but Canada took all of our liqueur off of their shelves as if that's going to hurt us now. Okay? Yeah. Like we care. So this is what tariffs are all about. Okay? We're putting America first. We come first. Just like any other country, they feel that their country comes first. Well, here in America, we believe that our country comes first. We are America strong, right? We are patriots. We are the ones that are always in the front line. You know what? I'll tell you a story. My son, he is a Marine. Hoorah! Right on? He said, and I quote, "Mom," he said, "I can't tell you how many times when I was in boot camp, when I was at MCT, when I was at 29 Palms, when I was on any other base," he said, "training or whatnot." He said, "I can't tell you how many times I heard this. When on the battlefield and another country saw an American coming, the look of relief on their face is priceless." He said, because they know that their asses were saved. Because we are tough. We are born tough. We are home of the brave. We are the best of the best. We make Marines. Hoorah. Okay? So, an American cattle rancher, he welcomes the 25% tariffs on Canadian and Mexican beef and cattle. Right on? This video is full of really great information and facts, statistics, and about how not having tariffs have destroyed every aspect of our livestock farming industry. Did you know that they're actually trying to pass more laws on cow farts? I mean, seriously, dude, leave it alone. Everybody passes gas. Who's next? Us? Okay? Seriously.
You know, RCAF USA welcomes the 25% tariffs on Canadian and Mexican beef and cattle, and we want more. And here's why. For decades now, we've argued that free trade, meaning when tariffs are reduced to zero, was harming American farmers and ranchers, particularly cattle and sheep farmers and ranchers. Our logical arguments against free trade included that many foreign countries had lower wages, lower production standards, relaxed environmental standards, and weaker currencies. We argued that each of these advantages give foreign countries an inherent pricing advantage over domestic producers. But our logical arguments were simply dismissed based on the theoretical underpinnings of free trade. The free trade architects simply said none of that really mattered, that America can outcompete anyone and would come out on top in a zero tariff world. Well, what wishful thinking that was. Since zero tariffs for cattle and beef went into effect between the U.S., Canada, and Mexico in 1994, the U.S. has lost about 285,000 beef cattle farms and ranches. Our national cattle herd has shrunk by about 6.5 million mother cows, and we've eliminated over 87,000 farmer feeders from our domestic supply chain's marketing outlets. What zero tariffs did was allow global importers to displace domestic farmers and ranchers, domestic cattle, and domestic cattle feeding opportunities with cheaper imports. And this has resulted in the alarming contraction of our domestic beef supply chain. Zero tariffs threaten our national security by dismantling our domestic food supply chain and by forcing Americans to become more and more dependent on foreign supply chains for such important staples as beef and lamb. Zero tariffs on lamb and mutton have all but destroyed our nation's commercial sheep industry. While the cattle industry has been shrinking for decades, the sheep industry is nearing the loss of the critical infrastructure needed to produce even 30% of the lamb meat consumed in America. In less than a generation, the sheep industry has lost nearly 5 million sheep from the U.S. sheep herd, lost over half of our full-time domestic sheep producers, and our non-global domestic lamb packing plants are struggling to survive as there aren't enough domestic lambs available to keep their packing plants running at economical levels. Cattle producers and decision makers should take a close, critical look at the sheep industry, the industry we view as the cattle industry's canary in the coal mine. Like the cattle industry, the sheep industry has shrunk in terms of its number of producers, number of sheep, and number of marketing outlets. And even though sheep numbers are at the lowest level in history, lamb prices have been erratic and falling and remain too low to incentivize herd expansion. So how can that be? Well, the reason, of course, is that domestic sheep production is fast being displaced with cheaper imports from Australia and New Zealand. So much so that the U.S. sheep producer now only maintains a 30% market share of the domestic market, with imports maintaining a 70% share. So the sheep industry is the first livestock sector in America to succumb almost completely to price-depressing imports. Now look at the cattle industry. Our domestic cattle herd has been declining in size for decades due to prolonged periods of low prices, the reduction of cattle grazing on federally managed rangeland, and rising imports. And most recently, there was a widespread drought, which accelerated the decline in the U.S. cattle herd, but it wasn't the reason the herd has been in decline for decades. A look at what's left of the cattle industry's cattle cycle reveals that since 1996, the herd size at the peak of each rebuilding phase of the cattle cycle remained millions of head fewer than each previous peak, meaning our herd size is on a long-term downward trajectory. Even though the nation's herd size is historically small, the domestic cattle industry is not rebuilding as expected in the face of these higher prices. So why is this? Well, just look at the record beef imports in 2024. In 2024, beef imports alone, not including the beef derived from imported live cattle, were more than 37% higher than the previous 5-year beef import average. And this is why we fully support the 25% tariffs on imports of beef and cattle from Canada and Mexico, and why we want similar tariffs on Australia, New Zealand, and South America, and why we want both tariffs and tariff rate quotas on imports of lamb and mutton from Australia and New Zealand. We can no longer pretend that our domestic cattle and sheep industries will somehow prosper when global importers are continually allowed to leverage down domestic livestock prices by satisfying increased consumer demand for beef and lamb with cheaper imports. This is a recipe for weakening America's food security. America needs more cattle and sheep farmers and ranchers, and more cattle and sheep. Tariffs and tariff rate quotas are the economic tool that will incentivize domestic market forces to make this happen. Well, I'm Bill Bullard with RCAF USA, the voice of the independent cattle producer in the United States of America. Have a productive week. Thank you and goodbye.
So now, TV Azteca is one of the largest broadcasters in Mexico. And they're at their border, and they're reporting like delivery trucks, okay? And these delivery trucks, they normally like wait in line, I guess you could say, for like 4 to 5 hours to cross the border into America. And now they're saying that there's no wait at all because of the tariffs. Now, 5 hours of wait time normally, that's a long ass time to be sitting behind a wheel, okay, on your butt. It's good. Can you imagine how your back feels after that? So anyway, this proves 47's point. We've been relying on imports far too long, bro. Far too long.
Para que se den cuenta la situación en la frontera, aquí se hacían filas de hasta 4 o 5 horas por día para cruzar a los Estados Unidos. Ahora son pocos los camiones de carga que llegan luego de la implementación de los impuestos de Donald Trump.
So now this. Tom Homan, he is doubling down on his CPAC remarks, declaring he is bringing hell to sanctuary cities that shield dangerous criminals. And right on, okay? And I know a lot of you probably live in these sanctuary cities, and you are done. You are tired, okay? After ICE removed 9 scumbags who have harmed children, okay, from Massachusetts streets, Homan made it clear that any of these people posing A public safety threat will be pursued. He said, and I quote, "I said it, I mean it. This is not just about Boston." Okay, so I'm going to put this up for you real quick. Ready? This is what he said. Can you see that? It says, at yesterday's hearing on sanctuary cities, several questioned and attacked a statement I made at CPAC, in which I said, I am going to Boston, and I am bringing hell with me. I made that statement right after I spoke about 9 child rapists, okay, that ICE took off the streets of Massachusetts. So yes, we are bringing it to every illegal alien. That is a public safety threat, especially those who attack our most innocent. And that message was said and is directed to them. Let me be clear. I said it, I mean it, and not just Boston. Everyone in that hearing room should be shoulder to shoulder with me on this issue. Absolutely. And you know what, sir? Every citizen is shoulder to shoulder with you too, okay? There is no sanctuary for child. Our country becomes safer every day under 47's leadership and his incredible support of ICE and Border Patrol. Thank you. Thank you, sir. And now this before I go. Kash Patel. He is confirming that the FBI, led by Pam Bondi, okay, has arrested 2 active duty U.S. Army soldiers and 1 former soldier for theft of government property. Guys, soldiers, hey, what are you doing? And a bribery scheme. Guys, you want to be a stain on this country? No, stop. The individuals stand accused of stealing critical U.S. defense intelligence and aiding adversaries like China, an act of outright betrayal. Betrayal? It's freaking treason, dude. So listen, you see this? It says, I can now report that today the FBI, along with our interagency partners led by Pam Bondi, arrested 2 active duty U.S. Army soldiers and 1 former U.S. Army soldier for theft of government property in a bribery scheme. These individuals have been charged with stealing Americans' defense intelligence capabilities, empowering adversaries like China, and betrayal of our country. They will now face American justice. You might as well roll out the red carpet at Gitmo. Okay? Guys, when we sign up to go into the military, we are signing up to serve our country, not to serve another fracking country. We are to protect our citizens here. Frick China. You think they give a shit about us? What did they offer you? Huh? More 99-cent store crap? Knock it off. Now you're going to be serving your life in Gitmo, you jack. Oh, I should smack you. Anyway, I'm out of here. I'll see you guys in the next one, okay? You stay safe, you stay positive, you keep prepping, and as always, fearless. Ciao.